Welcome to Built on Bitcoin.
What is up, you beautiful people? Welcome back to the Built on Bitcoin podcast. I have a special guest today. This person is building a bridge between Stacks and the Lightning Network. And I'm not entirely sure what that means, but we're going to find out today. PseudoZach, I appreciate you coming on. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jake.
I appreciate it. There's certain things that have popped up. I did my own catamaran swap like a month and a half ago, and everyone was talking about it. It sounded like a big deal, and once I did it myself, you kind of see how in its current form it's rough. It's not quite there, but the primitive is super powerful, and as it gets kind of like built on top of, you can do really powerful things with that functionality. And when I saw what you were building, I had that same kind of like gut reaction. And so I had to get you on the podcast to kind of explain it. I feel like this topic is being not as amplified as it could. And I guess we'll just start. I'm curious, first of all, what is Lightning Network?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with that. So Lightning Network is a scalability solution, right? That's built on top of Bitcoin. So because Bitcoin can do only limited number of TPS, right? So not everybody can transact on it, and it's expected that the fees will go up and it will be, like sort of unfeasible for regular people to transact on it. So back in, I think 2015, I think Dirja and someone else had the Lightning white paper. They wrote the Lightning white paper, which imagines what is called these payment channels that are basically smart contracts. I mean, they are contracts on Bitcoin. Think of it like a multi-sig contract on Bitcoin that you commit and you pre-sign a transaction and you sort of publish that. And then within that payment channel, two sides of the payment channel can sort of pass Bitcoin back and forth such that they don't need to publish all of these stuff to the blockchain. The best version I've heard for sort of normies to understand is that you keep a bar tab open until you're ready to close it. This way, you don't need to go back and forth to the bartender and keep paying for each of the drinks, but instead you keep that bar tab open. At the end of the night, you close it on the chain, right?
Okay.
Right. So that's the basic explanation. But if we go into the, back to the technical definition, is that you do these payment channels between each node, and if each node then connects to other people, then basically you have sort of a P2P tunnels between a lot of nodes and a lot of people, and you can route these pre-signed transactions, which are called HTLCs. And this means now you're moving around Bitcoin from one person to the other, and from one part of the network to all the way to the other part of the network through these hops, which are the nodes on the network. And you didn't even touch the Bitcoin blockchain. Nobody, it's not recorded, it's not published, but they are real Bitcoins secured by the Bitcoin network. So that's the layer 2 Lightning Network. That's the generic explanation I can come up with.
Interesting. Trying to think. So when you have money, when you're putting money on the Lightning Network, do you have to take it off the base layer initially and have it sit on Lightning?
Yes, you do. It's all backed by actual Bitcoin on the base chain. So when you see, like the network capacity is, I think now these days, like 2,000 Bitcoin, those are all locked in payment channels. Once they're on layer 2, then they're transferable instantly with a few Satoshi fees from anywhere. And nowadays there are really cool, really fast non-custodial wallets that you can just download and start transacting on layer 2, which makes Bitcoin faster and almost feeless to transfer. So
I mean, we've seen the Twitter tips function come to light in the past week.
Exactly.
Which is the underlying technology is that same infrastructure. Very interesting. So it's kind of like the bar tab example makes a lot of sense. So as you're passing, if we're keeping in that bar tab example, if you're passing it from peer to peer to peer, would it kind of be like that bar tab is being passed and there's only one bar tab?
That's exactly right. So you sort of open a bar tab, and within that bar tab, basically, I mean, multiple people can use the same bar tab, right? I mean, you can buy drinks for other people as well, and they're
Oh,
also right. I mean, they also put it on your tab now. It sort of breaks down at that point, but basically the idea is that you don't go to the bartender, right? So maybe you take a small payment, a quicker, easier payment from your peer, but not everyone needs to go to the bartender, which is the base blockchain, which is the bottleneck normally, right? So you don't need to use that. So instead, you can use the Lightning Network and these layer 2 payment channels, and gain all of this sort of flexible, programmable, instant, feeless Bitcoin transfers, which have the same. I mean, I would say almost the same type of security that the base blockchain has, right?
that
Because if yeah, maybe it's a good point to touch there, is that if you have any like discrepancies and like disagreements, right? If one party says, "Oh, you owe me 1 Bitcoin," but the other party says, "No, I owe you, less than that, like half Bitcoin,"
mm,
and then you go to the blockchain, you publish your transaction, and it says, "Here's the proof. Here's the cryptographic proof that this guy owes me 1 BTC," and the base chain miners will mine that, and the nodes will accept that, such that it's sort of backed by Bitcoin's own security, that you can publish that transaction anytime, and you'll be right. So Bitcoin becomes like the like the Supreme Court, right? That they call it. Like it's the actual. You only go there if you really need to. Otherwise, you can just transact amongst the peers and the nodes. You don't need to keep the base chain busy.
is that one of the perceived downsides? Is that the benefits are this quick finality, almost no fees, but because of how fast it is, and you don't have the 10-minute block time, there's more risk of people
Exactly.
disagreeing.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's pretty now that we have. I mean, we have I think 3, and there's a 4th implementation because this is all open source, and there are there's specifications like RC, and there's now 3 and 4 implementations that agree on how this thing is supposed to work, right? So you don't really normally you wouldn't have any disagreements. Only if you have a strange bug or some bad actors, then you would end up with some, you can maybe some people try to steal some coins and they are punished with this penalty transaction, which is published to the Bitcoin blockchain. But that happens very rarely from all the reports. And, I follow this pretty closely. So all the reports that I've seen, it rarely ever happens.
Interesting. And I'm assuming that you can open these channels for more than just sending BTC. Can you send other assets, or how does that work?
Not necessarily, and not at the moment.
Okay.
So so the thing is, Bitcoin blockchain, on the base layer defines only one asset, which is Bitcoin, which is actually Satoshis. Technically, it's 1 BTC is 100 million Satoshis, and that's what's defined in the consensus. That's the only asset. So there are people that are working on using Lightning to transfer other assets and tokens and things like. It's called there's an initiative called RGB.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're kind of working on that. I don't know. They were supposed to come up with a new VM and a new language to do that. But to be honest, I haven't been involved in that. I don't track that very closely. So what I can say that no, on Lightning you just pass satoshis back and forth.
Okay. And then getting into what you've been working on, what is the bridge between Stacks and Lightning more specifically?
Stacks has information on Bitcoin base chain, right? Because due to proof of transfer, POX, and all that, Stacks has actually access to the Bitcoin blockchain. It lists like the Stacks nodes themselves listen to the Bitcoin nodes and Bitcoin network in general. When I heard about that, that's a pretty cool thing to use, such that you can again cryptographically swap BTC with Stacks, because the Stacks node itself already knows about what's happening in the Bitcoin blockchain, right? So if a TX is sent, then Stacks node knows about that. So it's a good idea. But this one, what I'm working on, which is called LN-STX bridge, I just launched the website lnswap.org, is a different sort of implementation, which is called submarine swaps. And this is not something I came up with, of course. This was, I think, 3-4 years ago. Alex Bosworth, which is a very prolific, important developer in Lightning space. He works for LND. He came up with and he implemented it, and it actually still exists as submarineswaps.org, which basically posits that you can come up with a setup such that you can do trustless swaps between an on-chain asset, which in this case would be the Stacks chain. But of course, originally Alex Bosworth did this for Bitcoin base chain, and in our case, it's Stacks chain and off-chain, which is the Lightning Network. So how this happens is basically, I'll try to make it as simple as possible. So let me know if it doesn't make sense.
Will do.
Is that yeah, basically in Lightning Network, all these HTLCs and these pre-signed transactions people pass back and forth depend on a secret, which is called a pre-image, right? So and of course, yeah, I don't want to get into how Lightning works. It's all onion routed, so like each node does not know where the payment is going to. But this sort of presents a cool thing that you can use, is that each transaction between the parties include a pre-image, which is a secret. And at the end of the payment, if you successfully forward the payment and the payment is finalized on your peer, it reveals, I mean, you pass over this pre-image hash, which is the hash of the pre-image. It reveals a pre-image, which is the secret, and which is the exact same thing you need to keep in your database, right? In your node database, basically. And that's the thing that you can use and prove to the Bitcoin base chain that you actually passed over this payment. And how do you prove I paid this guy 1 BTC? How do you prove it? If you have this pre-image, that's your proof. That's your cryptographic proof. So this is pretty cool, because now we can use this, and of course Submarine Swaps thought about this, and they said, okay, we can use this to swap on-chain for off-chain, because basically we can hash this information and come up with a table, right? Like in Stacks. By the way, my work is supported by the Stacks Foundation. So basically, we come up with a smart contract on Stacks that includes all of these information, and this sort of like the amount of a swap, the receiver of the swap, target of the swap. We sort of hash all of this information and put it onto a table in the smart contract. And only if the other party, in this case LN-SWAP.org, like that's the service that I'm running to sort of to do a proof of concept for this thing, is only if I pay your Lightning invoice and you reveal your pre-image to me, I can take that pre-image, I can give that to the smart contract on the Stacks chain, and then I can claim those funds. Right? If I don't have that pre-image, which my peer reveals to me, I cannot claim those funds from the Stacks contract. Right? So this sort of assures the trustlessness of the swap. So this way, there's sort of no foul play. There's no custody. You're only interacting with a smart contract on the Stacks chain, and I can only claim the funds that you lock into the contract only if I pay your LN invoice and I get your pre-image, which is a secret thing that you reveal to me upon payment. I use that to get the funds from the contract. The swap works such that the contract on the Stacks chain holds these funds, and because it's a custody of the contract, I'm not in custody of the funds, you're not in custody of the funds, only then this swap works. And that's why sort of it's swapless, and that's why it's sort of genius when you think about it. And the first people that thought about it was pretty good to do that. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm gonna try and rehash in my own words what you just said, and you tell me how close I get. And just for clarification, on the stack side, which will be that's on chain, I can put any current asset that would be held in a Hero wallet.
Not yet. So we did the sort of first part of the grant, and it's completed and it's delivered, and all of this happens. But we're only right now supporting only STX, so only stacks. I'm hoping the next version of this we'll keep building on it, and there's already some requests to enable like USDA and the other assets. So yeah, we'll work on that. They'll enable that as well for the next part. Yeah.
Okay, so
it's in the roadmap.
Perfect. Yeah. So what I'm seeing is on chain, I would put 100 stacks into the smart contract, and it would basically be held in a contract in escrow in a sense. And then does that initial, so I'm doing that swap on the LN.org website, or is it just
LN-SWAP.org? No, yeah, that's true. LN-SWAP.org sort of facilitates this, right? It prepares the contract calls for you, but it's all open source, of course. So there's no foul play. But yeah, that's the idea. So
okay.
you go in there, you create a swap on chain. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and then so when I initiate that, that contract now knows how many stacks I'm trying to send off, and is the initial pre-image hash or the pre-image held in that contract already?
Pre-image hash is held, but pre-image is only known by you because you generate an invoice and you give that. And otherwise, in the current scenario, the browser creates a pre-image hash for you, which is unknown to the LN-SWAP operator because it's in your browser. It's in your local browser. It's created in your local browser, so nobody knows that, but you and your browser.
So if I were to use this right now, I would send over the 100 stacks that get put into escrow, and then I get, do I get the Lightning Network invoice at that same time, which I send to you?
Exactly. So it's generated in your browser. So exactly. So you have your 100 stacks. You have your invoice that's generated in your browser. So you give those to this LN-STX bridge application that's running there, right? And it creates a swap for you because it's sort of listening to all of these activity on the stacks and on the server, right? Yes. Go ahead from there.
And then when I have this invoice, can now the rest of it be handled simply on Lightning? So I could open up Strike and send the certain amount of Satoshis to that address. And if it fulfills that side, the invoice is paid and then the assets are released?
Well, I mean, yes. So once basically your invoice is received by the LN-SWAP.org, right? And your stacks is locked, confirmed on the stacks chain. So now your part is done. So what the LN-SWAP.org and this software that I've developed, this LN-STAX bridge does, is it listens to the stacks chain and says, oh, okay, this person with this swap ID just locked 100 stacks and they gave me this invoice, right? So what the service does, I mean, that's the only thing this application does, is that it pays that invoice, first of all, on Lightning Network. I mean, you can give it from Strike, you can give it from any number of, I don't know, tens of Lightning wallets. It can be from anywhere. It can be from your own node, through Umbrel or Raspberry Blitz or any of these nodes that are available. So it will pay that Lightning invoice, and paying that will reveal the pre-image, right, which is the secret that the server needs, and server will use that secret to unlock and claim the funds from the smart contract. So now you have the 100 stacks equivalent, and the server has your 100 stacks in their stacks wallet. So you swapped with no trust involved.
Okay, I almost get it. But in this case, there's two parties involved, right? So we're talking about, let's say I'm putting 100 stacks into the contract, and then your service is, you said your service is paying the invoice, but
yes.
is that technically the other person on the other end, or is it like, I'm confused?
I mean, it
part.
can be. It can be anyone, but they need to be running this LN-STX bridge application that I've developed, right? So that's the part of the foundation grant as well, because what that application does, it's like a Node.js application, right? What that does is, first of all, it listens to the chain to for any transaction, any lockups of stacks or like claiming of stacks and all this stuff, and it controls the Lightning node. That's why I was saying in the roadmap, hopefully I can decentralize this further so that anyone can run these things with one click. So what that means is now you can become almost like a KYC free non-custodial exchange, right? Anyone with a Lightning node, and that's the only requirement, that they can just sort of click one thing, provide the liquidity, say, I'm going to be accepting Lightning to stacks or USDA swaps, hopefully by that time, that are up to $1,000, right? And you don't take any custody. No one deals with any custody. There's nothing involved. And you only run the Lightning node with enough liquidity, right? You lock up some BTC there, Bitcoin there, and the rest sort of software takes care of it. It controls your Lightning node, so it can automatically, because otherwise, it needs to pay these invoices automatically, right? Otherwise, someone needs to be clicking things. So it just listens to the swaps, pays the Lightning invoices with the pre-image that it receives, unlocks and claims stacks from the contract. So that's it.
Very interesting. What would be the everyday use cases that are would be the most common in its current form?
So I mean, there's a bunch of the Lightning Network now practically onboarded a nation, right? So now there are, I think the last number was 2.53 million people on there, right? I mean, and that's only one country. Of course, the rest of there's amazing growth in Africa, and overall, there's a lot of potential there. So what that means is that Lightning is already working with all of these huge numbers of people, and it provides sort of instant feeless Bitcoin transfers, right? And for example, in the grant application, as sort of my first initial thinking was that you have these stacks apps, right? For example, you can stack your assets and get some return, right, on those investments. So this application exposes an API. So easily, these things, instead of showing or next to showing a stacks QR code and address for stacking, right? You can also just put a Lightning invoice there, and people can sort of just do this swap losslessly in the background, and the service that's providing the stacking service, let's say, ends up with the stacks, and they can sort of provide the returns back to the user, right? So I mean, there's a lot of ways that it can be used. It can enable basically Stacks apps to accept Lightning, and the other way, of course, Lightning apps to accept Stacks if they want to do that. And it increases the liquidity, right? I sort of listen in the Discord, see what people are saying on the Stacks Discord, what people need and what sort of things that can be developed. And I see maybe some access can be limited to some people, right? Because it's only available on some exchanges. Mm-hmm. So this way, if they have Bitcoin, first of all, they can easily swap to a Lightning Bitcoin, which some actually like Moon wallets provide on-chain and off-chain, so on-chain and Lightning balance in one wallet. So you don't need to know about Lightning or do anything at all. So you just get these wallets and you get Bitcoin, which is liquid, which is available everywhere. And then you can start using Stacks because you can now swap to Stacks with just, within 10 or 20 minutes in average without waiting. So, it sort of provides liquidity there as well. If you continue with this, I'll have another application, hopefully, and if it's approved and if we enable these assets, then I think it becomes almost like, I remember you asked about assets on Lightning. I mean, in that case, like the USDA, I think Arcadico stablecoin becomes on Lightning because, you can swap it almost instantly between one and the other, right? So anyone with Lightning Bitcoins can now have access to these stablecoins, which is not the case right now.
That sounds amazing, because when I see the biggest hurdle right now, it really is for the average normal person. The onboarding experience is way too difficult. And Lightning, I think it seems like it's going that way. It's going to become it's going to be the touch point that the most people are going to interact with probably going forward. So if you're not already on Coinbase or buying some stuff, there's a good chance you're going to touch Lightning first and then probably work your way down into crypto. And if that becomes the norm, then people are already going to have a Strike wallet or something like that. And if you can build infrastructure around that to unlock getting into stacks or stacking and getting Bitcoin yield or unlocking an NFT, that would be huge.
Right. I mean, I think Strike is a good point, right? So anyone in the US now can sort of download this app, right, Strike, and connect it to their banks. Okay, so now they're on Lightning. They're on Bitcoin layer 2 already. So with this app, basically, they can get onto Stacks if I enable micro blocks in the next release, and then within minutes almost they're onto Stacks. So it's just faster. It's liquid. It enables all these interaction. I mean, it opens up a lot of doors and it opens it fast. I think it's just a better UX. For everyone.
Zach, you're a genius.
I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm sort of just using things other people build, but I'm happy that these things are, and thanks by the way for having me and listening to me go on about these, because I think this is important stuff to know. And to be honest, like I think in certain parts of these discussions and people, we overlook the decentralization aspects of things sometimes. This is not targeted for anyone, but just in general. So you just sort of, okay, we can convert this back and forth. Okay, but what about the trustlessness? What about the decentralization? I mean, these, like as Bitcoiners, these are things we think about all the time and some people overlook. So this is why I'm saying, like in the next phase, if we can make this such that anyone can click a button and become a trustless KYC-free exchange that enables swaps, I mean, that's a game that I mean, to be like, we're going to win, right? Because then it's
100%.
like you can't stop that, right? I mean, you can't stop that.
Man, I mean, you broke it down to me in terms that I mostly understand. So I think we achieved our mission here. Where can people find out about you or more about the Lightning Bridge?
I frequent Stacks Discord. They can ping me there, PseudoZach there, and then they can comment on the Stacks grant issue or on my GitHub on these repositories that they can look at the code. But I mean, pretty much, I appreciate that you bring some exposure onto this, and I hope people will give it a try and let me know any questions and issues so we can improve on this. This is something I find cool to work on. That's why I do it. So yeah, I mean, I just give it a try. Let me know what you think. You say, if any things that can be improved, it can be, I'm happy to work on that. So yeah, that's all. I think that's all.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm excited to watch this thing grow. When I first saw it, I'm like, that seems like something kind of big. He's just sharing a GitHub post on the Discord, and the average person is not going to go read that. So I was like, I should probably dig deep and get him on a call and explore this further. So I appreciate this a lot. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you. I appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Welcome to Built on Bitcoin.
I know that things don't always go your way, but I'll be right